Greetings, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs. Don't mind me, today I'm attending a very special celebration. One that honors witches and wizards who, through the centuries, have received the most prestigious accolade, the Order of Merlin, first class. That my exceptional skill with the Confundus charm may have played a pivotal role in earning me such a distinction, well, that's a secret that remains between us, dear viewers. But before we start talking about medals, we must speak of the man who lent his name to the Order, the greatest, most legendary of wizards, Albus Dumbledore. Gotcha. I speak, of course, of Merlin, a wizard to whom we at the Spellbook Chronicles have already dedicated an episode in the past. Yet today, we shall recount his story in a new, deeper and more detailed way. A pupil of Salazar Slytherin himself, and sworn rival of Morgan Le Fay, his deeds were such that even the unsuspecting Muggles to this day still speak of them. What are you waiting for? Ready your time turners! For today, dear viewers, we embark on a journey into the past.
In the closing years of the 10th century, when Britain was still a patchwork of warring kingdoms and whispered prophecies, a child was born whose name would outlive empires. He would be remembered as Merlin, among the Welsh as Myrddin Wilt, Merlin the Wild. The accounts of his birth are as tangled as the forests that once covered the land. Some medieval chroniclers spoke of a princess of the old Brythonic line, a young noblewoman raised within the crumbling courts of post-Roman Britain, perhaps a daughter of a minor ruler in the kingdom of Dyfed. Her name is lost to certainty. In fragmented manuscripts, she is called Ellen Furch Riddoch, a pure-blood witch of ancient lineage, whose prodigious magical abilities manifested early. What followed became legend. According to darker traditions, she was deceived by a spirit, a being described variously as an incubus, a shadow, a demon of the air. The tale insists that this entity sought to father a child of immense power, one who would walk between worlds and bend fate itself. It is a compelling story. Medieval minds favored such explanations, yet many modern magical historians dismiss these accounts as projections of fear.
Nonsense.
Merlin's power was extraordinary, and history has rarely been kind to those who outshine their peers. To claim demonic influence was, perhaps, a way of containing what could not be comfortably understood. A more compelling theory has gained quiet traction in recent centuries. Merlin may not have been conceived by man, nor by spirit, but by magic itself, ancient magic, a force that predates spells, predates language, even Hogwarts, that rare and unpredictable phenomenon in which magic gathers, concentrates, and answers a call no one else can hear. And it was into this volatile inheritance that he was born, at a time when the newly founded Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry stood as a bold experiment in unity.
Of Slytherin, dragons, and time.
Sorted into Slytherin House, Merlin was said to be solitary, introspective, and rarely understood by his peers. Even in his first days at Hogwarts, he carried the bearing and vocabulary of an adult, yet could display the eccentric unpredictability of a 3-year-old. Salazar Slytherin, then a teacher and head of the house, recognized in the boy a rare spark, something raw, untamed, and unlike anything the founder had encountered in decades of teaching. Those were years of unusual calm for Salazar. Often at odds with the other founders, he nevertheless enjoyed a serenity in those early days, perhaps the quietest of his life.
The child.
In Merlin, he saw potential that could one day rival his own, or even surpass it. And though he remained wary of Muggleborns, he found in his own strict and secretive way a means to guide the young student toward his better impulses.
Do not waver.
From the very beginning, Merlin's aptitude was unmistakable. His wand, believed to have been carved from English oak, responded to his intent with a precision and power that few could command. Spells that would challenge experienced witches and wizards seemed effortless in his hands. By the age of 11, Merlin had achieved feats that would have astonished even the most learned of magical scholars, including the conjuring of a Patronus, not the typical delicate flickering form of younger wizards, but a creature of immense presence and strength, a vast dragon that soared proudly across the skies, untamed and indomitable, its scales shimmering with silvered magic. Historians suggest that Merlin, particularly if one accepts the theory that he was born of magic itself, was among the rare few at Hogwarts across the centuries to perceive and interact with the ancient magic that coursed through the very foundations of the castle. From the stones beneath his feet to the enchanted air above the turrets, this magic seemed to call to him,
Merlin.
guiding his steps toward hidden corners and secret chambers, some unknown even to the four founders themselves, places conceived by magic alone. Intriguingly, Merlin delved deeper into these mysteries, uncovering the existence of the fabled Cursed Vaults. 5 hidden chambers, each protected by its own ancient enchantment. Some whisper that these vaults contain treasures of immense value, gold, prophetic texts, and magical artifacts predating the school's very foundation, while others believe they harbored dangerous, dark magic. To most, the Cursed Vaults remained legend until the curse resurfaced within the school in the last century, only to be finally thwarted by a group of courageous students. They were aided, according to legend, by none other than Merlin himself, who in the final years of his life returned to Hogwarts to donate one of his own portraits. This painting had been imbued with every piece of knowledge Merlin possessed regarding the Cursed Vaults, in the hope that, should the curse ever arise again, his guidance might contribute to its ultimate undoing.
Oh, my valiant adventurers, I bring you news that shines brighter than any Loomis. 3 enchanted tiers: Curious Wanderer, Enchanted Explorer, and Master Adventurer. The room of requirement? Nothing but a broom cupboard in comparison. With us, you'll gain early access to every episode, a secret Discord server to keep you ahead of everyone else, and that's not all. Priority replies to your comments, a direct channel to help you choose new content together, and even exclusive wallpapers taken from each episode. And it doesn't stop there. For the bravest among you, extra videos with my director's notes and reflections on the episodes already released. Because, let's be honest, you can never get enough of your dashing wizard adventure, Quentin Pettigrew. Click join below for all the details. Joining the Spellbook family is a small gesture that supports our journey and allows us to bring content truly worthy of our audience. So thank you sincerely from the bottom of our hearts for being here. And you muggles listening in, I beg you tell me, what on Merlin's beard is a Discord server supposed to be?
By the time he was approaching the completion of his 7th year at Hogwarts, the young wizard's renown had already spread across the island.
Merlin, eh?
Before leaving the school for good, however, he thought carefully to leave behind one final trace of his presence. Beyond the castle walls, scattered across the meadows and rocky crags of the Scottish Highlands, legends whisper of puzzles and trials crafted by Merlin's hand. Each test is said to challenge the intellect, magical skill, and determination of those who dare seek it, requiring the use of a mallow-sweet leaf as tribute to gain access. Was it Merlin's attempt to pass down his knowledge and challenge future generations? No one knows for certain. Perhaps it was merely an extension of his genius and eccentricity. Perhaps in the end, it is nothing more than legend. Once Merlin's years at Hogwarts drew to a close, the course of his life became shrouded in uncertainty. Having earned the epithet Prince of the Enchanters for his extraordinary magical skill, the early enthusiasm of youth gave way to the harsh realities of war, the growing tensions between magical and Muggle communities, and a disillusionment that seems to have driven him into seclusion. News that his mentor, Salazar Slytherin, would abandon the school after a bitter quarrel with the other founders, consumed by anger and rancor, struck Merlin profoundly. He withdrew from all contact, immersing himself entirely in his studies, bored with the magic known to his contemporaries, convinced that far more lay hidden beneath the surface of the craft, he pursued mysteries that others dared not touch.
What are those?
What we do know for certain, however, is that one obsession grew over the years with relentless intensity.
Time.
The magic of time.
I wonder,
How did it truly work?
can I bend it?
Could it be distorted, controlled?
Control.
And if so, with what consequences?
What price?
Could one, for example, alter past events to reshape the present, and thereby the future? Here, Merlin's story becomes indistinct, merging with legend, even Muggle legend, blending history and myth. Remarkably, accounts of him seem to stretch backward through the centuries, into times far earlier than his own, even between the 5th and 6th centuries. How is this possible? Questions that only magic itself may answer. Historians can only offer theories, some more plausible than others. One of these theories, perhaps the most coherent given what we know, suggests that Merlin was the first to forge an object that would redefine the limits of known magic for centuries, a prototype of what we today call the Time Turner. Through this invention, he could traverse the flow of time itself, weary of his own era, perhaps driven by a desire to change the world and shape a future he deemed better, or perhaps simply to test himself and his ideas. Genius and eccentricity, always and in all ways. And it is with this theory that we return to what history seems to record with certainty: the life of Merlin in the realm of Camelot, where his deeds would become legend forever.
Of polyjuice, Camelot, and ravens.
When Merlin emerged in the court of Uther Pendragon, Britain stood on a knife's edge. Uther was a warlord before he was a king. He had carved out dominion through iron and oath, binding rival lords to him with fear as often as loyalty. The banners of the Britons flew above battered fortresses, yet beneath the surface, the old fractures remained. Saxon incursions along the eastern shores, petty kings nursing grudges in the west, alliances sealed at dusk and broken by dawn. It was into this atmosphere that Merlin stepped quietly, as he always did. Some sources claim he offered counsel. Others suggest King Uther sought him out after hearing rumors of a prophet who spoke of futures, as though recalling memories.
A prophet?
What is certain is this:
Summon him.
Uther became dependent on him. And then there was Igraine. Igraine was a woman of rare beauty and gentle bearing,
Lady Igraine
the wife of Gorlois, Duke of Cornwall.
shall be mine.
Uther desired her with a hunger that eclipsed prudence.
How dare you?
When Gorlois refused to yield her, war followed, and blood darkened the rain-soaked fields of Cornwall. It was then that the king turned once more to Merlin.
Sorcerer.
The chronicles grow uneasy here.
Son.
They speak of a bargain struck in a candlelit chamber while the storm pressed against the walls.
Igraine will be mine.
Uther would have Igraine,
At any cost.
he told the wizard, at any cost.
As you.
A sly smile crept across Merlin's face.
Igraine will be yours.
He said,
But in return, what is born of this union will belong to me.
and the king agreed.
So be it then, sorcerer.
Through the precision of a perfectly executed polyjuice potion, the wizard altered Uther's appearance, shaping him into the likeness of Gorlois.
My love,
Under that borrowed face, Uther entered Tintagel, welcomed by Igraine's love.
I was waiting.
Before dawn, a child had been conceived,
A boy.
a child whom Merlin did not hesitate for a moment to claim. His father, Uther, would give him the name Arthur. When Uther died, struck down amid betrayal and exhaustion, the fragile unity he had forced into existence collapsed. Noble houses advanced their claims with sharpened steel. The throne became something to seize, not to inherit. Britain trembled on the edge of fragmentation. The boy, however, was already beyond their reach. Merlin took him and vanished from the center of power.
Sorcerer.
Some sources whisper that Uther protested.
I know what I agree.
But in the end, he knew he could do nothing against Merlin's authority. Arthur was carried away from the courtly intrigues that might have destroyed him, yet never from the currents of truth that shaped the land. Merlin had seen, in a vision that came unbidden in the night, the shape of a king who would one day rule Britain. A bridge between worlds. A keeper of balance. To forge such a king would become his task. Perhaps this was the reason behind his obsession with the manipulation of time. Perhaps it explained why he chose to serve the warlike King Uther. Perhaps Merlin had already known. Every choice, every act, had been moving toward this moment. From the earliest days, Arthur was taught to listen before he spoke, and to observe before he judged. He learned the old languages and the subtle movements of magic. Some historians describe him as Muggle-born, others as a Muggle raised among magic. He never possessed a wand. Perhaps this was another of Merlin's strategies. What mattered was that magic stirred around him, curious, alert, waiting. The old mentor revealed his secret to him.
A phoenix.
He told of his own time, of Hogwarts, of the founders, and of conflicts that had shaped the hidden world. Over the years, under Merlin's strict but unpredictable guidance, the boy learned responsibility, the weight of power, through one adventure after another, one trial after the next.
Sonorous. Attention, attention, breaking news! The brand new Spellbook Shop has finally opened its doors. In our shop, you'll find treasures to make even the shadiest nocturne alley merchant green with envy. T-shirts, posters, booklets, and much, much more. To visit the shop, click on the tab above, follow the link in our bio, or head to the store section of our YouTube channel. Or was it YouTube? YouTube? That bizarre Muggle contraption, you know what I mean. And let it be known, dear viewers, your support means the world. Every purchase helps sustain our channel, letting us share new stories and fresh content. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Spellbook family.
And in the blink of an eye, the years passed. In a crowded churchyard, before nobles spent thin with rivalry and suspicion, stood a stone set upon iron. Embedded within it was a sword, its blade catching the pale winter light. Words were etched upon it, their meaning half lost to time. The challenge had been issued. Whoever could draw the sword would be rightful king. Men had tried. Knights renowned across Britain strained until their hands bled. The sword did not move. Arthur stepped forward. His hand closed around the hilt of the sword. For a long heartbeat, nothing stirred. Then, with a sound that seemed to draw all the air from the courtyard, the blade slipped free from stone and iron. Silence fell, heavier than any cheer. Every eye turned to the boy who now held in his grasp a destiny older than memory. Prophecy had taken form. Merlin, watching from the shadows, allowed himself a quiet nod. The world had shifted. Word spread swiftly, carrying the name Arthur across the land. The boy who had drawn the sword was declared King of Britain. And in the wake of his coronation, Camelot rose, a city shaped not only by stone and timber, but by the vision of a ruler who would seek balance in a fractured realm. Here, at the heart of his new kingdom, Arthur would carve the future he had glimpsed in Merlin's visions. With the wizard at his side, he founded the Round Table, a place where knights and advisors alike could gather as equals, where courage and wisdom measured a man's worth more than birth or wealth. Meanwhile, the young king trained ceaselessly with Excalibur as a wizard would with his wand. Forged in goblin silver, the sword would respond only to its rightful owner. Its edge was sharp, yet its true gift lay in its ability to heal the wounds of those who bore it faithfully. Gifts fit for a rightful king, the old mentor would say. Together, they set about restoring order to a realm scarred by decades of war. Villages long abandoned saw life return. Dark wizards, trolls, and brigands were brought to heal. Old grudges, carefully untangled by Merlin's cunning and Arthur's growing sense of justice, began to yield to peace. In this new age of stability, Merlin found a steadfast companion in the eccentric yet unflinching Sir Cadogan, chosen as a member of the Round Table. The knight's strange habits and boundless energy could have been a distraction to any other, but Merlin recognized in him a courage that was as peculiar as it was unwavering. Their friendship was built on mutual respect and a shared understanding of the delicate balance between bravery and folly. The Wizards' Council earned him a place of respect, even among the fiercest and most seasoned knights. While Arthur solidified his rule and Camelot flourished, a dark presence threatened the realm, far from the king's gaze. She was Morgana, daughter of Igraine and the late Duke of Cornwall, and thus the half-sister of Arthur himself. From the earliest days, Merlin had urged Igraine, who had remarried King Uther after the Duke's death, to remove the child from the court, sensing the dangerous potential that dwelled within her.
I trust you.
Raised as if she were nothing more than a shadow, Morgana spent her childhood in the convent where she had been placed for her own safety. Even there, she displayed a power that unsettled the sisters who sought to mold her. Animals shifted under her will, tempers bent as easily as twigs in her grasp. Fear grew around her, and so did her isolation. In the hidden chambers of her mind, the seed of resentment took root. Morgana's childhood was a map of absence. The absence of affection, the absence of understanding, and the absence of a world willing to see her as anything but dangerous.
Enough.
By the time she reached adolescence, she had learned not only to defend herself,
Hands out.
but had become fully aware of her powers.
Now.
Though she could not yet control them completely and had no wand to guide her,
As you wish.
one act of self-preservation became legend.
Sister.
A single confrontation with the convent's strictest sister left the woman crawling, transformed into a wretched worm. Fleeing the confines of the convent, Morgana eventually seized a wand, whether by theft or murder, and gradually entered the hidden world where the darkest and most forbidden magic was practiced,
Follow me,
where outcasts lurked and where clandestine sorcerers held sway.
my loyal one.
Under her hands, spells considered complex even for seasoned wizards became second nature.
Tempest knocks.
She learned to weave curses and protective wards with equal facility, to heal and to harm. Over the years, she discovered the secret of the animagus, a black corvid with eyes that gleamed like smoldering coal, a form she would assume to move unseen, to watch, and to strike. Gradually, every dark wizard of the realm, long hidden and cowed by Merlin and the Round Table, came to serve a new mistress, a new queen, Morgan Le Fay. According to numerous contemporary historians, Morgan's figure may coincide with that of Morrigan, the legendary Irish witch capable of transforming into a crow, ancestor of William Sayer, father of Isolde, founder of the Ilvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The only apparent contradiction, they argue, is that the Irish witch was pure blood, unlike Morgan, who was Muggle-born. Perhaps the passage of centuries has merely distorted some details of the tale.
The throne. will
Morgan,
be mine.
more powerful than ever, coveted the throne she could not inherit. But most of all, she desired vengeance. Merlin, the architect of her destiny, would pay and fall. So too would that puppet of her half-brother, arrogant in his own glory. Let them choke upon it. For years, she tested her powers against the very fabric of the realm, creating chaos, sowing disorder, reigniting war. A magical war, devastating and lethal, the likes of which had not been seen for centuries. And finally, after tumult, battles against dragons and giants, and feats as heroic as history and legend could remember, the long-awaited moment arrived.
The great Merlin.
The duel that would redefine the course of the wizarding world.
Finally shows himself.
Merlin against Morgana. A clash of wills and magic so vast that the air itself seemed to bend under its weight. Spells of ancient origin, charms thought lost, and forces older than any wizard's memory collided with a fury that would echo through centuries. Historians debate the particulars, but the duel is preserved in the very stones of Hogwarts, where a stained glass window in the defense against the Dark Arts Tower captures the clash in radiant detail. Dragons of fire, ravens of shadow, streams of light and dark, all frozen in a single, eternal tableau. A window that, in Merlin's time, the young Slytherin had never wondered about, what it represented, or who the figures might be. The ironic charm of a time-turner after all. No record survives to declare a victor in the duel. Some say Merlin fell, his life ending in the wake of the struggle. Others claim Morgana vanished, her wrath spent, leaving behind only stories of her power. What is certain is that Camelot emerged from the storm, battered but whole. The kingdom endured, yet the age of Merlin, the architect of its order, came to an end.
Heard the news.
The wizard himself had disappeared.
Merlin's dead.
No one knows what became of him, or if and when he died. What remains indisputable is that the work he accomplished in that extraordinary era, what Muggles now remember as the Arthurian legends, endures in the wizarding world as something of immeasurable value. Merlin's deeds, his defense of the vulnerable, and his tireless struggle against the dark arts to restore balance to the magical realm planted seeds that, centuries later, would grow into the Auror division.
Of auras, legacy, and Slytherin again.
Long before the Auror office became the well-oiled machine it is today, the fight against dark magic in Britain was chaotic, scattered, and frankly, rather dangerous for anyone involved. There were no protocols, no proper training, just brave or foolish witches and wizards facing curses with more guts than guidance. It all began to change under Minister Eldritch Diggory, ancestor of the late Cedric, who, seeing the rise of dark forces, probably tired of the paperwork and obsessed with the deeds of Merlin and the ideals he had strived to uphold, launched Britain's first official Auror recruitment program.
Committees.
It was a bold
We
move,
require immediate
creating an elite magical task force
decisive action.
dedicated to tracking and taking down dark witches and wizards, not just reacting to chaos, but preventing it. Among the first to answer the call was a name that still echoes through the stone corridors of the ministry: Hephaestus Gore.
Gentlemen.
Fierce, sharp-eyed, and utterly uncompromising, Gore quickly became one of the most feared auras of his time.
As you wish.
His methods, effective, if a little excessive. But it was an age of rebellions, alliances between goblins and werewolves, and shadowy uprisings that threatened to tear the magical world apart. The Auror knew that responding with brutal efficiency was the only option. He wasn't just a hunter of dark wizards. He climbed the ministry ranks fast, stepping in as Minister for Magic when things got particularly messy. He crushed uprisings, reinforced Azkaban, and turned the ministry into a fortress of law and order.
No exceptions.
By the time Gore stepped down, the Auror office was no longer just an experiment.
Welcome.
It was an institution.
Gentlemen.
He retired a legend,
The Auror office.
battle-scarred and legless, his portrait still hanging in the headquarters, watching over new recruits like a silent warning. In the 15th century, the Wizengamot, guardians of the magical realm, decided to enshrine his memory in a singular, enduring manner. The Order of Merlin was born, a recognition reserved for those whose dedication shaped the wizarding world.
Sir Galador.
Recipients of the Merlin Medal were said to carry a fragment of his vision,
We award you
a commitment not to glory, but to service,
the Merlin Medal.
to the quiet acts that preserve balance and justice.
It's an honor.
The medal itself bore no flourish beyond its simple engraving, yet within it rested the weight of centuries and the echo of a wizard whose life had touched both the mortal and the magical. Yet the name Merlin endured in a different form, one that bore more than ceremonial weight. Long before the Order of Merlin appeared in statutes and halls of the Wizengamot, Merlin had conceived of something far less formal, but far more daring. In the courts of Camelot, he gathered a circle of wizards who shared his vision, a world where magic and muggles might coexist without fear or oppression. This circle became the First Order of Merlin. Through painstaking lawmaking, counsel, and the occasional subtle persuasion, Merlin ensured that muggles were protected, making it illegal to wield magic against them.
No more.
These laws, regrettably, did not endure, yet they unmistakably planted the seeds for what would later become the prohibition of the 3 unforgivable curses and the enactment of the International Statute of Secrecy in 1692. Merlin's profound influence extended even into the vernacular of everyday wizarding speech. where his name became synonymous with expressions of surprise, awe, and incredulity. The popular exclamations, "Merlin's beard" and "Merlin's pants" reverberated throughout the magical world as funny reminders of the wizard's enduring presence in the collective consciousness. Of course, his card is one of the most well-known in the famous Witches and Wizards cards collection, produced by Chocolate Frog Confectionery. But even the life of the man now considered by many to be the greatest wizard to have ever lived masks a more intricate truth. Merlin was a trickster, a master of strategy and subtle manipulation, willing to bend reality and human behavior to achieve ends he deemed just or necessary. He was capable of deception, not for personal gain, but for a vision far larger than himself, an enduring reminder that greatness often walks hand in hand with moral ambiguity. According to many historians, a strikingly similar trait can be found in the figure of Albus Dumbledore, equally eccentric and unmatched in his command of the wand. It is perhaps this very complexity that illuminates the paradox of his affiliation with Slytherin House. Ambition and cunning, the hallmarks of the Serpent's banner, were tools in Merlin's hands, not for dominance or prejudice, but for the careful shaping of society. Where others of his house might have been tempted by narrow self-interest or rigid hierarchy, Merlin's ambition extended outward, encompassing unity, tolerance, and the protection of those vulnerable to injustice. His cleverness was never idle. It was always in service of balance, and it is in this paradox that the true spirit of Slytherin can be glimpsed. A house capable of darkness, yes, but also of vision, resilience, and profound insight. It is easy in later centuries to associate Slytherin with cruelty or fanaticism. The shadow of Salazar's obsession with blood purity, the creation of the Chamber of Secrets, and the actions of those who later followed in Voldemort's footsteps have stained the house's name. Yet Merlin reminds us that these traits, ambition, cunning, pride, are tools, neutral in essence, their effect determined by the intent of the one who wields them. And so, as we turn our gaze back to Salazar Slytherin, it is through Merlin's lens that we might finally come to understand him. To know the house's origins, to comprehend its allure and its danger, we must confront the duality between the apprentice and ultimately his master, the very man who founded Slytherin House.
Of origins, Parseltongue, and Mudbloods.
An era long before the International Statute of Secrecy was established to shield the wizarding community from Muggles and conceal its existence from the wider world. A time fueled by fear, superstition, prejudice, and violence. These were the so-called Dark Ages of the medieval period. It was in the shadow of this oppressive reality that a prodigious child was raised by his pure-blood parents, either in one of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms or, as some historians suggest, more likely in one of the Irish realms. It was clear from the very beginning that young Salazar's magical talent was something extraordinarily rare, a gift that, due to the seclusion of the desolate fens where the Slytherin family lived, he had the opportunity to nurture and hone day after day, becoming ever more sharp, perceptive, brilliant.
You are destined for greatness.
The magical education provided by his parents was instrumental in this, and Salazar would spend entire mornings hunting with his father and entire afternoons gathering potion ingredients with his mother. But the moment the young boy cherished most in his heart was the time spent with his many friends in the fens, the snakes. They told him about the world, tales of bygone eras, and dark, precious secrets that helped Salazar understand magic in all its facets, preparing him for his future. The boy's eyes widened in surprise when his mother revealed to him that Parseltongue, the language of snakes, was an exceptionally rare and hereditary gift, even among wizards. An ability whose origins, to this day, many magical scholars attribute to the Gorgons, dark, parcel-mouthed creatures of ancient Greece, from whom the powerful wizard Herpo the Foul is believed to be a direct descendant. At the age of 10, now considered nearly an adult,
Tis time.
it was time for Salazar to take his first great step as a wizard.
I shall find it.
He needed to obtain his own wand.
My wand.
In those days, although a few craftsmen like the Ollivanders already existed in the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, the practice of purchasing one's wand was not yet commonplace. Back then, especially for witches and wizards living far from the larger settlements, it was customary to seek out the druids, who believed that any plant with a woody stem could be used in wand making. In the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, at least, it was common for the purchaser of a wand to provide their own core, or request something specific, usually a traditional or well-liked substance. But Salazar had no intention of turning to anyone else for the creation of such a crucial artifact. He would craft his wand with his own hands,
This way.
a wand superior to any ever conceived. The boy ventured deep into the forest, determined to find the remains of the one the snakes had whispered about for so long, their ancient king, the most powerful and majestic of all serpents. A creature originally conceived by none other than Herpo the Foul, who discovered that a chicken egg hatched beneath a toad would give birth to a truly unique being, the basilisk.
Of the many fearsome beasts and monsters that roam our land, there is none more curious or more deadly than the basilisk, known also as the king of serpents. This snake, which may reach gigantic size and live many hundreds of years, is born from a chicken's egg, hatched beneath a toad. Its methods of killing are most wondrous, for aside from its deadly and venomous fangs, the basilisk has a murderous stare, and all who are fixed with the beam of its eye shall suffer instant death. Spiders flee before the basilisk, for it is their mortal enemy, and the basilisk flees only from the crowing of the rooster, which is fatal to it.
And so it was that young Salazar, standing before the imposing bones of the fallen creature, found himself breathless. Kneeling before it with reverence, as if in the presence of something once divine, the young wizard claimed one of its horns.
Mine.
It would become the core of his snakewood wand.
At last.
The artifact the young boy crafted was something that remains inexplicable to this day. An object so infused with magic and power that it appeared almost sentient. Through the use of Parseltongue, Salazar instructed his wand to listen, understand, and above all, obey only its master, binding it to sleep should it ever fall into the wrong hands. Even now, it is considered the most powerful wand ever created, second only to the Elder Wand, which, however, would not be forged until centuries later. As the years passed and his thirst for knowledge became ever harder to quench, the young wizard resolved to leave his homeland to explore the world, and above all, to discover all that magic had to offer. Though his parents strongly opposed his decision, they reminded him of his duty to bring honor to his ancestors and uphold the purity of his blood, wherever fate might lead him. And at last,
Which,
they offered him a warning.
at dawn,
Suspicion had crept into the eyes of Muggles,
you burn.
even among those who had once sought the help of wizards to heal from illness. Now, the ideas of a handful of zealots who believed that anything magical should be burned and eradicated had spread through the world like a plague. The hatred harbored by those beasts had to be kept at bay or suppressed.
As the witch hunts grew ever fiercer, wizarding families began to live double lives, using charms of concealment to protect themselves and their families. By the 17th century, any witch or wizard who chose to fraternize with Muggles became suspect, even an outcast in his or her own community.
Some historians propose a theory suggesting Irish origins for the Slytherin family, connecting their lineage to Maewyn Succat, known to Muggles as Saint Patrick. As legend has it, the saint drove all the snakes from Irish soil, purging the land of impurity. While Muggles interpret these snakes as a metaphor for Celtic pagans, magical historians consider it evident that they were, in fact, many of the witches and wizards of the Irish territories. If this were true, It would mean that the Slytherin family, Salazar's ancestors, were among the very few to survive St. Patrick's Purge, forced to live in the shadows, to hide, to avoid extinction. Over centuries, they developed the traits we now commonly associate with Slytherin House: cunning, ambition, pride, and distrust of Muggles. What began as survival instincts gradually evolved into what today might be seen as elitism and prejudice. And so, Salazar Slytherin set out on his journey, traveling through the greatest and most prosperous magical cities of the time, from Paris to Cordoba, and all the way to Constantinople. The young wizard immersed himself in the study of the most complex forms of magic, experimenting and honing his understanding of the dark arts to its highest potential. In particular, he delved deep into the study of the unforgivable curses, which at the time were still fully legal and not unforgivable, widely used as a means of defense against Muggles.
Of friends, dreams, and hogs.
By now, having become the great wizard he was destined to be, Salazar felt in his heart that it was time to return home. He knew that all those years spent studying and experimenting had to culminate in something greater, a higher purpose for the good of the entire magical world. And so, Slytherin set sail for Londonburg, the greatest of the Anglo-Saxon cities. It was here, in this wizarding world, that Salazar found the answer to the destiny he had been seeking. It had never been easy for him to come across a witch or wizard of his age truly worth noting. But not in Londonburg. There was a wizard, Godric Gryffindor, so skilled that he had single-handedly defeated an entire army of the Goblin King, Ragnarok I. And what about the witch, Helga Hufflepuff, known by all as the most talented in charms and healing magic?
Salazar.
And then there was her, Rowena Ravenclaw. As beautiful as she was, brilliant, a tremendously powerful witch and the most exceptional seer he had ever encountered.
You've traveled far.
The friendship between the four sprang forth naturally, as clear and lively as a spring brook. Each of them shared a deep love for magic, and above all, felt a profound responsibility towards the future of the wizarding world.
It's on us.
They believed it was their duty to do everything in their power to ensure prosperous and harmonious centuries for future generations. A world where magic would no longer be something to fear, but rather a gift to be honed and wielded to its fullest potential for the greater good. And so, together, they envisioned, hoped, and dreamed until their aspirations took shape as something truly magnificent. A school of magic, the very first to unite young witches and wizards from the Anglo-Saxon and Celtic lands. A place that, as we well know, would change the course of history for centuries to come. The Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It was in the Scottish Highlands that the four chose to build their school, a place far from Muggle eyes, but above all, a site brimming with an extraordinarily pure and rare form of energy, one difficult to harness: ancient magic. None of them, alone, could have hoped to tame such a force, but together, through an unparalleled array of charms and spells, they would lay foundations as solid as the castle itself would be impregnable, wholly shielded from Muggle malevolence. Anyone without magical nature who happened to wander into those mountains would find nothing but a bleak and menacing ruin, instilling in them an urgent sense of danger. It was the year 993 AD, and the epic of Hogwarts was finally beginning. But with it came significant responsibilities. Among them, how would they select which students were worthy of attending Hogwarts? Each of the four founders had a very clear and distinct idea on the matter. For this reason, they agreed that every young witch or wizard with magical ability should be welcomed to the school. However, each student would be placed under the primary guidance and tutelage of one of the four founders, who would select them based on their unique qualities and inclinations. For Salazar, the core principles and values that defined a talented witch or wizard could only be those instilled by his own family: cunning, ambition, and blood purity. On this particular point, more than any other, his vision differed from that of his friends. Certainly, the bloodshed that Muggles continued to bring upon the magical world was something on which he could not compromise. On the other hand, every half-blood or Muggle-born, if gifted with magic, needed education and guidance to control their powers, just as much as any pure blood. To Salazar, however, this presented a potential threat. He believed that those whose blood was not pure carried a magic that was limited, unstable, and, for this very reason, exceedingly dangerous. What if these mudbloods used their knowledge of magic to help their kind hunt down and annihilate the wizarding world from within? Despite his resentment and fears, the wizard decided it was best to set aside his convictions, for the good of the school and for the good of all, for now. In its early years, the school flourished and thrived, gaining popularity across the European continent year by year. Under Slytherin's guidance, students became great scholars of magic, sharp of mind, and exceptionally skilled with their wands. To Salazar, a thorough understanding of the dark arts in all their branches was not just encouraged, but deemed essential. He pushed his students to transcend every dogmatic boundary of traditional magic, believing that true mastery lay beyond the safe and the conventional. Proficiency in the three most powerful curses, the Imperius, the Cruciatus, and the Killing Curse, was, in his eyes, a fundamental requirement for any great witch or wizard, and therefore for every Slytherin student.
Of storms, rancor, and airs.
The years passed at Hogwarts, and as magic continued to shine ever brighter across the British Isles, Salazar Slytherin's heart grew darker. With every smile Rowena bestowed upon her half-blood students, his stomach tightened. With every cheer from Godric for Muggle achievements, his fist clenched harder. And with every proposal from Helga to welcome Muggle-borns into Slytherin, his insides twisted painfully. Where once he believed he could tolerate the situation, lately, the ever-growing spirit of acceptance and brotherhood at Hogwarts had swelled into something he now saw as dangerously toxic. Something had to be done, once and for all. And so, Salazar made one final attempt to assert his opinion, warning his friends of the danger they were all heading towards. But their minds remained unchanged. His words, in fact, sparked the fury of Godric, perhaps the one he considered the closest among the three, and between them erupted a heated argument, one that narrowly escaped becoming a deadly duel.
I fear we shall never come to an accord. I cannot persuade even one of them to listen to reason. I had dared hope that Godric's thoughts aligned with my own, that he understood why the caliber of students needed to be exceptional. But he has fallen prey to the ridiculous notion that Muggle-borns are somehow as capable as purebloods.
After what had transpired, the castle walls, once so filled with his pride and ambition to do good, now overflowed only with hatred and pain. He knew it was time to leave the past behind, along with his grand dream.
So be it.
Salazar Slytherin would leave the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Despite Slytherin's absence, the three remaining founders rolled up their sleeves to ensure that the balance of the school and its students remained intact.
Is everything well?
Though there was a deep sense of discontent among the Slytherin students, who continued to be selected by the Sorting Hat, a powerful magical object imbued with the personalities and values of all four founders to sort future generations of students, Hogwarts continued to prosper. Beyond their smiles and steadfast ideology, however, beneath the stone floor on which they stood, the will of their old friend thrived, more alive than ever. A wizard like Salazar would never have allowed his legacy to wither away without taking action to prevent it. He had left the school, yes, but not without planting within it the seed of his own beliefs. 2 chambers, as dangerous as they were dark, had been designed and built by him in secret before his
If I
departure.
speak it now,
One was a scriptorium,
the door will
impossible to find without the gift of parcel tongue, and impossible to survive without demonstrating a willingness to use the Cruciatus curse, an allegory of his philosophy. To do good in this world, one must unfortunately
endure.
be prepared and aware that it will inevitably bring misunderstanding and pain. Inside the scriptorium, Salazar had left his precious spellbook,
Slytherin spellbook.
an artifact of immeasurable value for the boundless knowledge contained within it.
This is incredible.
According to some rumors, the book was recovered in 1891 by a Slytherin student, Sebastian Sallow, only to be destroyed a few months later. But it was not in the scriptorium that the wizard had placed all his hopes for the future of Hogwarts. No, there was another chamber, hidden deep within the castle's foundations, far more sinister and deadly. The Chamber of Secrets. Within this chamber, whose entrance could only be accessed through Parseltongue, lay a weapon for his heir, a young and powerful basilisk, created and raised by Salazar himself, was destined to serve the one who would someday come to the school to bring justice and restore order to the wizarding world. This heir would purge every mudblood, every unworthy soul of the gift of magic and the education offered by Hogwarts. He, and only he, would be the true heir of Salazar Slytherin. A tale shaped by hatred, by loss, and by the quiet hunger for vengeance. A shadow carried forward by the bloodline that followed in his wake. And yet, as we have seen, even among those marked by that lineage stands the figure of the great Merlin, a descendant, a young wizard whose mind burned with questions from his very first days at Hogwarts. It was Salazar who recognized that fire, who chose to temper it rather than extinguish it. He nurtured Merlin's ambition, sharpened his cunning, and taught him never to fear daring what others deem impossible. That, in its purest form, is Slytherin. And once again, we arrive at the same conclusion. Blood, values, the banner of a house. None of this truly matters. The story of Harry Potter and Tom Riddle, like that of Merlin and Salazar, reminds us of what ultimately defines who we are. Our choices.
And so, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs, Merlin's legacy is incalculable. Not merely spells and legends, but an idea that transcends magic itself. That despite our differences, wizards and muggles thread the same earth and live under the same sky. Could Arthur Pentaryn truly be a distant relation of mine? For today, I bid you farewell, my dear adventurers, as ceremony awaits. But we shall meet again. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon, and for the rest of your wizarding life.